Imagine sitting alone in a silent room, no maps, no satellite images, no intelligence reports. Someone hands you nothing more than a random number and asks you a single question. Describe the secret military base hidden thousands of kilometers away. It sounds like the plot of a Hollywood movie. But during the Cold War, the United States government spent years and millions of dollars investigating whether this might actually be possible. For more than 2 decades, military officers, intelligence agencies, psychologists, and scientists worked on one of the strangest secret programs ever funded by the US government. Its final name was Project Stargate. The idea behind it was extraordinary. If a person could somehow see distant locations using only their mind, they could become the ultimate spy. No satellite could be shot down. No agent would have to cross a border. No secret document would need to be stolen. The question was simple. Can the human mind gather intelligence from places the body has never been? This is the story of how one of the world's most powerful governments decided that the question was worth investigating. To understand Project Stargate, we first need to understand the world that created it. The year is the late 1940s. The Second World War has ended, but peace does not last for long. Instead of one global conflict, the world enters a new kind of struggle. The United States and the Soviet Union become rivals. This rivalry becomes known as the Cold War. Unlike previous wars, this conflict is fought through intelligence gathering, scientific breakthroughs, nuclear weapons, proxy wars, propaganda, and technological competition. Every discovery could change the balance of power. The launch of Sputnik in 1957 shocked the United States. Suddenly, Americans realized that the Soviet Union could achieve technological breakthroughs before they did. The race for space intensified. So did the race for intelligence. Governments began asking a dangerous question. What if our enemy discovers something that we ignore? This fear influenced many unusual research projects. Some investigated mind control, others explored hypnosis. Some looked into drugs that might influence human behavior. And then came one of the most controversial ideas of all, psychic abilities. Today, the idea sounds unbelievable, but intelligence agencies do not necessarily investigate only what they already believe. Sometimes they investigate what they fear their opponents might believe. Throughout the late 1960s and early 1970s, American intelligence analysts received reports claiming that the Soviet Union was investing significant resources into research involving telepathy, psychokinesis, and other forms of extrasensory perception. Some reports suggested Soviet scientists hoped to use psychic methods for military applications. Could spies secretly communicate using thoughts? Could soldiers influence enemy equipment? Could someone mentally observe a secret military installation? Most scientists were skeptical, but intelligence officials faced a different problem. Imagine ignoring the reports. Years later, suppose they turned out to be true. The consequences could be catastrophic. Even if there was only a 1% chance that psychic abilities were real, some officials believed it deserved investigation. This was not necessarily because they believed in psychic powers. It was because they could not afford to dismiss the possibility without evidence. That mindset became the foundation of what would eventually become Project Stargate. The US government needed researchers willing to test extraordinary claims using scientific methods. That search led to the Stanford Research Institute, commonly known as SRI in California. Unlike many sensational stories surrounding psychic phenomena, the researchers at SRI attempted to design controlled experiments. Two scientists became especially important: physicist Harold Puthoff and laser physicist Russell Thorpe. Their objective was not to prove psychic powers existed. Instead, they wanted to determine whether unusual claims could survive scientific testing. If the results were negative, the question was settled. If the results appeared positive, the implications could be enormous. Military organizations soon became interested. Funding began to arrive from various government agencies. The research remained classified. Very few people knew these experiments were taking place. Around this time, researchers met an artist and former military intelligence soldier named Ingo Swann. Swann claimed he possessed unusual perceptual abilities. Unlike many self-proclaimed psychics, he welcomed laboratory testing. Researchers asked him to perform increasingly difficult experiments. Some observers believed his performance was remarkable. Others remained unconvinced. Regardless of the debate, Swann introduced ideas that would become central to remote viewing. He argued that almost anyone might possess latent abilities if trained correctly. Instead of relying on spontaneous psychic experiences, he proposed a structured method. Participants would receive almost no information about a target. They would carefully describe every impression without trying to guess its meaning. The goal was to reduce imagination and encourage raw observations. Whether this method truly worked remained controversial, but it became the basis for what would later be called controlled remote viewing, often abbreviated as CRV. Before continuing, let's define the central concept. Remote viewing is the claimed ability to describe a distant or hidden target without using the known senses. Importantly, remote viewing is not supposed to involve dreams, visions, fortune telling, or communication with spirits. Its supporters describe it as a structured information gathering technique. Imagine that a sealed envelope contains the coordinates of a secret location. The remote viewer never opens the envelope. Instead, they quietly write or sketch whatever impressions come to mind. Perhaps they describe a large metallic structure, cold surroundings, water nearby, tall towers. Only after the session ends is the real target revealed. Researchers then compare the descriptions with reality. If the descriptions consistently match unknown targets better than chance, spotters argue that something unusual may be happening. If they do not, skeptics argue the process reflects coincidence, suggestion, or selective interpretation. This debate has continued for decades. As experiments continued, interest within the U.S. military quietly increased. Different agencies became involved over time. The project changed names repeatedly as responsibility shifted. Among its earlier code names were Scanate, Gondola Wish, Grill Flame, Center Lane, Sunstreak. Each reflected a different administrative phase rather than an entirely new project. Finally, in 1991, these efforts were consolidated under a single name, Project STARGATE. The name sounded like science fiction. The reality was more mundane. Most days involved people sitting in quiet rooms with notebooks attempting to describe hidden targets while analysts evaluated the results. There were no glowing portals, no secret teleportation devices, just experiments that tried to answer one extraordinary question. Could consciousness gather information beyond the limits of ordinary perception? To many people, spending government money on psychic research sounds absurd. But consider the potential reward if it had worked. Imagine being able to identify hidden missile silos, locate enemy submarines beneath the ocean, observe secret weapons laboratories, find kidnapped hostages, or discover military plans without risking human agents. Even occasional success could provide a major intelligence advantage. That possibility justified continued funding. For intelligence agencies, the calculation was straightforward. If the cost of research was relatively small compared to overall defense spending and the potential payoff was enormous, then investigating the idea could be seen as a reasonable risk even if the probability of success appeared low. Because the project was classified, rumors spread rapidly. Some believed the government had already discovered genuine psychic abilities. Others dismissed the entire program as nonsense. Neither side had access to the classified documents. Only decades later, after many records were declassified, did historians begin reconstructing what actually happened. Those documents confirmed something important. Project Stargate was real. The funding was real. The experiments were real. The scientists were real, but the documents also revealed something else. The evidence was far more complicated than either believers or skeptics had imagined. Some sessions appeared surprisingly impressive. Others failed completely. The program's history was filled with contradictions, and those contradictions would ultimately determine its fate. By the late 1970s, Project Stargate had evolved from a small scientific curiosity into a classified intelligence program. The next question was obvious. How were these remote viewing sessions actually conducted? Who were the people attempting to become psychic spies? Did any of their missions produce information that intelligence agencies considered useful, or were the apparent successes simply coincidence and human imagination? In part 2, we'll examine the most famous remote viewing missions, the individuals at the center of the program, and the extraordinary claims that continue to fuel debate decades after Project Stargate officially ended. Project Stargate, the CIA's secret psychic spy program. Part 1. The birth of psychic espionage approx. 1,400 words. INTRO